Thank you. Senator Lankford.
Thank you very much. Thanks for allowing me to be a guest on this committee, or the subcommittee today as well, to be able to join in on the conversation. Gene, it's good to see you again. Thanks for the work. Thanks for your whole team and the work they continue to be able to do, to be able to drive some things home. I really appreciate that. It may surprise you that I'm going to ask first about taxpayers' right to know. I know it'll be shocking to you for me to be able to bring this up. This is an area that you and I have worked on for years, trying to be able to get to a point that we can discover what's happening and where we have duplication in government. Your team spends months working on things we should be able to pull up in seconds online, and we're working towards that. OMB had some small pilots back in 2019, 2020 on that. They've now tried to be able to advance on it. So I've got a couple of questions. Are you tracking week to week, month to month on the progress being made on taxpayers' right to know implementation? Are they on track to be able to make it by 2027?
We are tracking it. In fact, our team has a meeting with OMB again tomorrow. We're meeting on a regular basis with them. Whether they're on track or not yet, I think that's an open question. They have these 4 additional demonstration pilots that they're planning to do, as you know. Right. Their target is to finish those by 2025, but contingent upon getting enough resources. Now that, whether they get the resources they believe they need or not, I think is the biggest open question.
My understanding is they're looking at some of the pilot programs, talking somewhere around $20 million to be able to run a pilot program for 4 of them. I remember that number correctly?
I'm not sure, sir.
Seems like a big number to me to be able to run a pilot program.
Well, I've also encouraged them to go to the agencies to get help in this area through the various councils that are in place. And they tap the executive branch agencies often to provide support and resources to help run these pilot kind of programs. So, but I think that's the real key issue that I'm keeping an eye on, is whether or not they're either getting the resources directly or getting them from the agencies. And after a while, if I don't see that on track, I will definitely let you know.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's just extremely important. We're never going to be able to get on top of inefficiencies and duplication if you can't see it. So this allows us the opportunity to be able to see it, know if it's being evaluated, know the personnel that's being committed to it, and whether it's helpful or not. This is not about just slashing programs. This is discovering if we have 150 STEM programs, oh, look, we have 150 STEM programs, then we couldn't see it before, so let's try to figure out what's actually working, what's not working with it. So appreciate that very much. On that same line, you had some recommendations on trade-based money laundering as well, and found some duplication and fragmentation in that area. It brings up to me an issue that I've been poking around on a little bit on it, and it's the lines of authority in federal law enforcement. We have FBI, we have DEA, we have ATF, we have Homeland Security investigators, we have Treasury that's actually doing investigations. Almost all of, in fact, all of those deal with cyber crimes, for instance, plus we have CISA that actually engaged with as well. Have y'all been able to do a recent study on overlap on federal law enforcement, how we're maintaining silos and cooperation there, or where we actually have authorities in some places where we may have 4 different branches of federal law enforcement have authority there?
Yeah. The latest work we did was in 2020. We looked at the Secret Service and their activities versus others. Interestingly, what we found, we talked to 12 prosecutors, and from a prosecutorial stand of view, their view, all 12, said that they thought it was beneficial to have more than one agency involved and have jurisdiction because they bring different skills to the process. Now, 2 of the 12 said there are some negatives and inefficiencies, and sometimes multiple agencies are investigating the same entity without either one of them knowing about it.
Right.
So, but we haven't done a broad-based work for a while. I'd be happy to talk to you about doing some additional work. This has been an issue. I've been in government a long time. This has been an issue for a long period of time. Now, in fairness to the agency, sometimes they will have task forces, like there's an organized drug task force at the Justice Department. There's some other task forces where they bring together all the skills, and it's done very well and effectively. The pandemic was another case where they've done that. So if it's done well, it can be advantageous. If it's not done well, it can be wasteful and duplicative.
There are moments when there's a crime scene that has federal nexus on it, and you have 4 or 5 different agencies all show up. And you've just got this overwhelming number of people trying to be able to figure out who's going to do the investigation, how it's going to work. And I've not seen a lot of places, there are a lot of places where there's bad relationships there. My interest is, do they all need to be there? Are there tasks that they're each doing? Why do we have four of them to be able to do that in that situation? And what's the best way to be able to do it? Who needs to have that clear line of authority so we don't have so much duplication in the process?
Yeah. We'd be happy to look at that issue.
That'd be helpful. Same issue you've dealt with before on dealing with the border, and you dealt with last year looking at DOD assets being used at our southern border for assistance there. My understanding is there's still 7 recommendations that are open dealing with DOD, but that seems to be accelerating. We had U.S. Marshals that were down at our border last week actually trying to be able to help in some of the chaos there at the border to be extra manpower. Have you looked at all this manpower usage from multiple different agencies in their delivery to the border?
Not to my knowledge. No, nothing recently.
It's just an issue trying to be able to determine, best use of resources, what that actually looks like. There's now contract workers that are coming on board as well at our southern border, trying to be able to help facilitate. Our Border Patrol, it's no grand secret, the drug dealers all know it, but our Border Patrol is so overrun that they've stopped doing checkpoints. They've stopped doing a lot of the interdiction for drugs along the border and in between the border points of entry because they just have the manpower because they're checking in so many people that are crossing the border illegally. So I understand why DHS is trying to bring in additional assets, but trying to be able to determine what's the best use of those dollars and of people and of resources and how we're facilitating the decrease of drugs coming across our border as well and do that interdiction. I think would be extremely important.
Okay. We'll be happy to work with you on that issue, too.
Be great. We'll get a chance to be able to talk about it long term.
Sure.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Senator, and I look forward to continuing to work with you on Taxpayer Right to Know and a number of other key bills. Senator Ossoff.